Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Julianne Pepitone, and I am moderating this discussion in partnership with Texas A&M University. The topic today is progress in healthcare. And to talk about healthcare today, it really means leaning into the stunning paradox that is this moment. On one hand, we're facing serious challenges, aging population, rising costs, and a workforce that any physicians in the room certainly know is absolutely stretched to the limit. But on the other hand, at the same exact time, we are also witnessing breathtaking progress at incredible speed. Researchers finding cures for diseases that were once thought untreatable, 3D printers creating human hearts, AI detecting deadly cancers earlier than ever, and augmented reality that's training the next generation of clinicians. And this is the paradox of our moment, right? Extraordinary pressures that are colliding with extraordinary possibility. So the question is, how do we turn these breakthroughs into lasting impact for patients, providers, and health systems? That how is the topic of our conversation today. I'd like to welcome our three panelists, all of whom are medical doctors in addition to their titles shared above, so certainly no slackers up here today, except maybe myself. No MD here. So as I said, clearly this is a time of enormous challenge, but also enormous progress. So I'd love to hear, I'd love for each of you to give a little bit of context about what you're working on. And if you could share with us what, in your opinion, is the most transformative force in healthcare right now, and maybe the most intractable problem that really needs solving. Mansoor, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so the medical science, and especially the development of products, is enormously complex, and where you have to deal with the chemistry, the pharmacology, the clinical pharmacology, the clinical sciences, the marketing, engineering, development. So now we have tools that we did not have before, all right? But what happened now, the education system has changed and the companies have gone. Previously, most of the products were made in the United States, and we were, the brands, the generics, and all those products were made here. But now things have changed, and a lot of the products have gone overseas. And so because of the tools that are available right now for us, I think we are able to do it much faster, much more presentable to the patients, and the patients have the choices. So I think the quality of life has improved, and now we have medication for diseases that we did not have before, and they are available to patients that were not getting these medications before. And so I think we have made a tremendous progress in terms of making the medications available to the patients these days.
Let's go down the line. Dominic, same question for you.
Great, well, fantastic to be here. I think the kind of intractable challenge I'd call out facing healthcare at the moment is this mismatch between supply and demand. We see that in this room largely with increasing waiting lists, but according to the WHO, 4.5 billion people around the world don't have access to even the most basic healthcare. So on the demand side, we're living longer, often with chronic diseases, which present a big challenge. And on the supply side, again, according to the WHO, we're 10 million health professionals short and growing. And it takes a long time to build that expertise. It's not a tap you can turn on quickly. In terms of what's the most transformative opportunity out there, probably heard this more broadly across the last few days, is certainly AI from my perspective. We're, with generative AI, on a path to kind of widespread medical superintelligence. Just from our group at Microsoft AI a couple of months ago, we released work showing that AI is now capable of solving the world's most challenging clinical, diagnostic challenges.
Could you give us an example of one of those potentially very difficult challenges?
Well, what we did was the New England Journal of Medicine, which is the most prestigious journal in the world. Every week they publish these case reports. They're very much like House MD type. It takes years to get to the diagnosis. So we looked across 304 of those cases, applied a health-specific orchestrator model to them and reached the right diagnosis in 80% of them. When we got a panel of expert physicians, they hit a pass rate of about 20%. So 4 times the rate against those challenging cases.
Significant.
And the next few years is really about how do you apply that in the real world, right? How do you give clinicians superpowers to get to diagnosis as early? And we think, more importantly, focus of a lot of our work is on consumers. How do you give everyone in this room the tools they need to get onto the path to better health?
Great. And Simrat, same question for you. Would love for you to tell us a little bit about your work and then any thoughts on the most transformative force in healthcare and the most intractable issue.
So, great forum here. I do want to tell you that my background is a physician scientist, and I'm a little bit unusual because something that developed in my laboratory is now transformed into a clinical stage biotech company. And the problem that we were solving was basically to treat inflammation that generates from autoimmunity and T-cell dysfunction. So as I sit in front of you, I'm going to kind of marry the 2 questions. You asked me about what is the most transformative thing. In my opinion, I think it's cell and gene therapy. I think in my lifetime, I would have never thought that cell therapy can actually be transformed into a therapeutic product that can be given to the patients worldwide. I think that we have, as a human race, tried to cure certain diseases like sickle cell anemia, which is very asymmetric in terms of its distribution in the population. But still, sickle cell anemia is curable now. However, the problem that we face is enormous cost of development production. And that's where what we have developed is an allogeneic off-the-shelf regulatory T cells, which can be productized. And these cells can be given off the shelf to any patient in the world in their doctor's office without requiring for admissions or treatments. And what I mean by that is that if you think about inflammation, it's like an inverted pyramid. You have all these inflammatory processes going on, and the current treatments that are out there basically neutralize only one segment or one end effector of that inflammatory cascade. What we have developed is try to neutralize the base of it, go to the root cause of it. And I think this resonates with many other therapeutics in cell therapy that have been developed because these cells are intelligent. They are like heat-guided missiles. They can go into the body, they can seek where inflammation is, and they can neutralize it. So we feel very fortunate that this road has been started, or this door has been opened by many pioneers before us. But what we are presenting right now, and very fortunate to be at Texas A&M, that has provided the real growth trajectory to folks like us who have innovative thoughts. In terms of challenges, I'm going to switch a little bit. And as a physician myself, I think one of the challenges that we are facing as a human race, specifically, and I can talk about in the US, is erosion in the trust with the healthcare system. And I think after COVID, the trust has deteriorated to the fact that, of course, every patient, every consumer should be empowered with tools such as you guys are developing, but also tools that are validated so patients are not misled. I can't tell you how many times you face the distrust coming from the patients, and they have polypharmacy because everything is accessible, you can buy everything, but that disconnect that has happened between the physician and patient unit, it has to be healed, and it can be healed using tools like you're developing, and like Dr. Khan had mentioned, these tools of digital data, of transparency, of having a partnership with the patient as opposed to alienating them is extremely important.
Thank you. I want to talk a little bit more about solutions. You all mentioned a few there. We see lots of headlines about kind of buzzy new things. Each of you talked about innovations that you think are having an impact. Would love to hear more about whether it's inside your specific field of study or not. What types of innovations do you think are truly having an impact? And then what's maybe being overrepresented or overhyped that you think may not really come to pass or may not be as impactful as we might think now? Dominic, we'll start with you.
Well, I obviously called out AI as being the kind of biggest transformative opportunity, but also prone to the most hype at the moment. Most of us do our best to stay out of the health system and hospitals, but the challenge in healthcare is that it's not simple to drop this kind of technology into systems that, even the best medical centers in the world, not far from here, will still rely on paper and fax machines and pages, technology that is fallen out of favor 20 years ago in most other industries. So, I'm a huge fan of people going after pretty specific problems and challenges and really working out all the kind of friction and tension to make them work. So maybe just to call out a couple, and specifically around AI side. If you look at diagnosis, for example, if you get a mole and you want that checked out, you may wait weeks to see a dermatologist. There's now regulated, approved solutions that do as good a job in screening. So, I'll give you an example of a company like Skin Analytics. Go after a thorny challenge and problem, very focused. On the therapeutic side, behavioral health, people can wait months to get access to talking therapies in person for depression, anxiety. We see a range of solutions now that have similar outcomes, if not better, than face-to-face therapy, digitally delivered, that are only getting better and better. So again, it's people and teams going after specific pain points and problems and developing solutions against them.
Mansoor, same question for you. What innovations do you think are really having an impact? What's overhyped?
So there are a lot of them that have impact, but some of the things that we were working with is 3D printing of medication. As I indicated before, it's an enormously complex area where a lot of areas have to work together. They are in silos. Engineers work themselves, chemists work themselves, pharmacologists work themselves, but how do we bring them all together? AI can be extremely helpful in that. But the example that I want to give you about 3D printing is how do we give medications to our children and grandchildren today? If you really think about it, it's very, very inefficient at this time. What they do is they take most of the products are developed for adults. They're not developed for children. There are a lot of complications. It's not very easy. So when you develop a medication for an adult, for example, I'll give you an example, right? So you have a adult pill that's 25 milligram in strength, right? But a child is growing, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, right? But how do you give medication? And their dose is very different. 6 months old, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, right? So they don't get this 25 milligram of drug to this child, right? And because child might need only 3 milligram or 5 milligram or 7 milligram, and this is changing with age. And in FDA, the way medications are approved, each strength, each dose is considered a product. 1 milligram strength is a product. 2 milligram strength is a product. 3 milligram strength is a product. A pharma company is not going to develop a lot of strength because it's not a good business for them. There are not many children with that disease, right? But how do we get medication? So at this time, what they do, they take the 25 milligrams adult pill, and they crush it and grind it. The pharmacist, I started my career as a pharmacist in New York City, so I used to do that a lot myself. Take a pill, 25 milligram, crush it and grind it in a mortar and a pestle, and add some liquid in it so that I have 25 milligram in some liquid. Now, if I need 2 milligram, I pick some amount of liquid. I tell the moms, give 5 drops to this child, or give half a teaspoonful, or 1 teaspoonful. That's how we give medications today. So most of the people might see, take the medication, shake well before use, because we crushed it and ground it, put a liquid in it. Problem is this, a lot of time medications are very bitter in taste. A lot of medications are extremely bitter. So what we do, we provide a coating to it. So you and I don't feel that taste at all, right? So you take the pill, 25 milligram, it's done. But for a child, when you crush it and grind it, all that coating is gone. It's yucky, the child doesn't want to take it. Secondly, most of the products are very stable when they are in solid forms. A lot of food items also, right? You see them, they're very stable. But if you make it a liquid from a solid, they are very unstable. Fungal growth, microbial growth, and things like that, right? So, and that's how our children are getting medications. These are compounded medications. So I was so lucky that I used to be a director in Food and Drug Administration. I know a lot about what industries face and challenges and all. But Texas A&M University, I thought, it's a very comprehensive university. We need engineering side, the chemistry side, the agri-life side, the physics and some of the instruments that are needed for it. It was right there. So they were 3D printing different objects, I thought, wouldn't it be great to 3D print medications for children now? So where I don't have to take a 25 milligram and then make it 2 milligram, 3 milligram, take a 3D printer and print medications in layers so you can get exactly the amount that you want. You're 3D printing right there in the flavor that the child wants. It's in solid forms. And so one of the things that I was working on, there was actually a case, FTC versus Viera. They had a product for adults for a very rare parasitic disease. Each pill was $750, right? And so I thought, oh my God, you're taking that $750 pill per dose and crushing it and grinding it for a child, right? So why don't we 3D print that medication? So we approached NIH and we told them, hey, this is a problem. We can 3D print it, and sure enough, they gave us funding for that. And then I saw the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They were trying to have some antiviral products. Again, we went to the NIH for the 3D printing. They funded us. It's a beautiful concept, 3D print in the flavor. And now the quality is ensured on this one because you're doing all kinds of evaluation for that product. We are not converting for an approved product to another product, right? So I thought this is a tremendous opportunity, and hospitals can have it. We are training those clinical pharmacists there who are in the hospital to actually physically 3D print medication. By the time a prescription comes from a physician to the patient, you come here, you have freshly printed, 3D printed medication. On my computer screen, I can say 2 milligram, 3 milligram, 5 milligram. It's exactly printing those number of layers, right? Tremendous opportunity. This is just one. Like that, there are many other opportunities, especially bringing AI to bear on that one, right? But we need to be a little bit careful, though, because with AI, sometimes you need validations of the work, right? So you are creating a model. After that, you need to validate, and biological systems are extremely complex, right? So that's something we need to work on. There are a lot of opportunities there.
Fascinating. I would definitely love to get rid of the many bubblegum flavored bottles of amoxicillin that always seem to be in my own fridge. Any parents here, I know you're laughing, you know. Simrat, you know, a lot of the technologies, these innovations are what gets the headlines, right? And that makes sense. But for these new innovations to actually have an impact, we also need advancements in medical research, strategic partnerships. I'm curious, in your view, what it takes, like how exactly do those right pieces need to come together to accelerate that innovation and make it have an impact in the real world?
So I think it's a great question, first of all. So the answer to that would be two parts. One is scalability, and one is the true partnership. The scalability aspect of it is that whatever we are developing, if I'm developing a drug or if I'm developing a treatment, is it for a sliver of population or is there a generalizability? So early on, and I'm just speaking from my own experience, one thing that I did, and I made sure that our investors and we were a young company, was to control the manufacturing production in order to create scalability. As you know, in cell therapy, it's n equals 1, whereas what we did was we were able to productize it so that with one starting manufacturing campaign, we were able to make hundreds of doses that can be shipped to any part in the country or the world and given to the patients in outpatient clinic. An example of that, and I'm just going to try to brag off of Dominic, we got also published in New England Journal of Medicine evidence, though, and our patients who were treated with ALS, they were able to get treatments. They got up to 22 infusions. We showed disease stabilization. We showed that there was neutralization of inflammatory component and therefore decrease in the progression and disease evolution, which comes the second true partnership. No drug development can happen without true partnership of academic institutions. Yep. Yes, there is a huge push with the pharmaceuticals, but truly the heart and the heartbeat of healthcare as well as drug development is in alignment with these institutions. When I started, I had great support from MD Anderson Cancer Center. When I'm growing, I have great support from Texas A&M NMAD. And when I say NMAD, Dr. Tim Boone, who is the dean of NMAD, he has this vision for the future to prepare medical students, but with an engineering background. So these students have 2 degrees when they come out. So they have the mind of an engineer.
No slackers up here and no slackers at A&M, apparently.
So they have the mindset of an engineer to solve a medical problem. And what I believe is that the problem of scalability that we face in cell and gene therapy can be solved by those kind of hybrid models.
Wonderful, thank you. Dominic, I would love to hear from you on this, from the Microsoft and industry perspective, just kind of how these pieces need to come together, the innovation, but also the research and the strategic partnerships.
Yeah, technology in itself can't just be dropped in, as we've discussed, and to weave it into the health ecosystems critically important. So maybe to call out the two areas that you discussed. I mean, medical research feels like it's really evolved over the last kind of decade. So whether it's in academia, whether it's in industry, technology organizations, I think the focus on the cross-functional teams is really important now. And so I know there's lots of creative types and designers in the room, like bringing those kind of mindsets right from the start and kind of user focus, I think is seen as critically important. So research looks a lot different now than it did even a few years ago. And partnerships are absolutely critical, and it's important to recognize what each side brings. A startup may bring technology and agility, but the partner brings real kind of industry, like know-how, real knowledge, insight into how healthcare works in practice. So I think when we get that right, when you marry up kind of technology groups and hospital systems, different parts of the ecosystem, I think the opportunity to get to scale and impact is much improved.
Oh, thank you. And Mansoor, same question for you.
Yeah, so the collaboration, of course, is the key to move forward, because the 3D printing that I mentioned, engineers were working on it for a long time. So they understood 3D printing, and then the parasitic disease that I was talking to, some of the biologists are working on it for some models, right? So collaborations are very, very important across the industry. But I think the policy and regulation also is critical, right? So you have a product that might be the best product, and if it's not evaluated well in the right time, the entire business can very easily collapse. And I've seen incidences like that. For example, the cell and gene therapy and all, right? So you have a wonderful product going very specifically to the patient, and it takes a lot of resources, a lot of time to do it. If somebody doesn't understand that very well on the regulation side, it can easily get killed. And a lot of times these products get approved with some surrogate biomarkers, but after that they get validated in the actual patient. Once you start seeing the patient's data across the board, then you will see some signals, and all of a sudden there's a pressure on that one, right? So it will be a tremendous pressure on the industry for sustainability and long run, right? So that's why they're looking for some platforms that can be used across the board. So, and our policy and the decisions, some of them are very antiquated, very, very antiquated in the pharma industry as opposed to other industries, right? And that's why we need to upgrade, we need to understand that, and I think collaborations with the regulatory bodies and the policy developers is the key for our progress.
So looking ahead, everyone here is a consumer of healthcare. I think we're all curious. None of us has a crystal ball, of course, but when you look ahead to what could potentially shatter, disrupt, upend, whatever word you want to use, the healthcare system, what is one innovation or maybe process transformation that you, maybe a few years ago, never thought you'd see, but that you now believe is possible in your lifetime? Simran, we'll start with you.
So if I had to choose one, I think I will put my money on the digital twin for clinical trials.
Yeah, can you explain what that is?
I am so excited about that, and I'll tell you why. Because when we treat diseases that are rare, it's very hard to do, like Dr. Khan said, the antiquated methods of a randomized placebo-controlled trial. That means you take 100 patients, 50 patients get the drug, 50 patients get the placebo. Now, the patients who got placebo may not be exactly the same in terms of their characteristics as much as you want to measure them, and there may be some unknown biases that can creep in. What we want to, and we are so excited, and I'm so happy that folks like Dominique are invested in it, is that if we are able to create the life cycle of a patient, given the circumstances, given the data that we have in a snapshot, the minute he or she walks into the doctor's room, we utilize that snapshot and that trajectory or that built trajectory as a digital twin, and then utilize that pathway to what our intervention is doing. And then you compare and cross, and this becomes really the precision medicine that we are dreaming about, that is N = 1. patient is his or her own control. The therapeutic intervention that is being made is unique and is able to satisfy the diverse heterogeneity of the patient's own immune system. And when we are targeting diseases like autoimmune diseases, like psoriasis, like rheumatoid arthritis, neurodegenerative diseases like amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or dementia, every individual patient is different. So my biggest bet would be that if we are able to create this digital twin, we will not only create these unique solutions that will be instrumental or transformational for the patient, but also for the drug development side. And I can tell you, being in academia, these costs are not really visible to us because we are so protected. But on the drug development side, the biggest cost of the drug development is not R&D, it's clinical trials. It is so costly, it's so consuming, and if your statistical design is not correct, if your placebo control is not correct, that whole 10 years and I'm not going to say, but double-digit millions are gone down the drain, and that drug, which may be actually good, is now tabled. So that's what I would think.
All right, great. Dominic, same question for you. That one innovation you never thought would be possible, and now you do.
I'll say two quick things. So one, I think we're going to see a dramatic reduction in information asymmetry between consumers of healthcare and people that go through medical school, fellowship training, residency, et cetera. And we're on the cusp of true multimodal AI, which, just to break down what we mean there, a lot of early AI work that I and other people have been involved in was able to really go after one data type, right? So we would look at mammograms and train an AI model to say, is there cancer, yes or no? And what that's not how you practice medicine, right? You see a patient, you take a history, you examine them, you may look at a CT scan, you may look at genomic profiles, and we're now seeing AI systems capable of taking in all those data types together and coming up with a best kind of response and recommendation. So as you called out, this movement to precision medicine, our view would be that multimodal AI is very critical to that, and that feels much closer than it was unimaginable. We were not even unimaginable 10 years ago. We didn't even think about multimodal. It was like single point issues, challenges, and that's entirely different today.
Oh, very exciting. Dr. Khan, we'll give you the last word.
So there are a lot of new technologies, but what I'm more excited about is the fact that the processes have become much more efficient now because of the tools that are available to us that were not there before, right? So the pace is tremendous now. Earlier, it used to take over 10 years to get a product out, and the statistics show out of 10,000 molecules that are discovered, people get excited about it, get grants, publication, but out of 10,000 molecules, only one comes to the market. A lot of them fail in various stages, and most of them fail in the clinical trials when they go there, right? So enormous amount of failures, a lot of wastages, but now it's not as much because now we understand what drugs, what molecules to go through this AI and through the utilization of the tools that are available. And so some of the drugs have come out in the market very, very quickly. At least I know of one drug which came out in 6 months. There was a national emergency. The product was needed very, very quickly. So, and later on, it can be, of course, tested and evaluated on the market. So, but there was a pathway for approval of the drug that we did not have that before. And there are technologies that are available that we can utilize very, very quickly. And we can learn from years and years of data, years and years of product that have been developed now. We can learn from those products. We can look at their chemistry and certain properties and see how they behaved in animals and how they behaved in normal volunteers and how they behaved in patients. And based on that, select molecules that have more chances of success and more chances of really meeting the patient's need. And also, I think these days the focus is on patients, individual patients, but that's a trade-off between a business decision and the patient's needs, because a lot of times, if it's a very individual patient, a pharma company may not be that excited. So now there are provisions for hospitals and provisions for people to directly work in the hospital by a compounding route or by another route to work in the hospitals for that specific patient, right? So I'm excited about the tools that are available to us, numerous, a lot of analytical equipment that we did not have ability to measure tiny amounts in the body. We have them now, right? So utilizing those tools, we can get to the product development a whole lot faster.
Thank you. That is our time for today. If you would like to rewatch this session later, it will be made available on fastcompany.com. Once again, I'm Julianne Pepitone, and on behalf of Fast Company and Texas A&M University, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.